Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our staff statement concludes about al-Qaeda now that it's a loose confederation of regional networks with greatly weakened central organization. And so my question for the panel is this: does that mean that it is less capable of harming us, or is it more a multi-headed snake that is in fact more potent?
The one thing that I would have added to the staff statement, because it is true, al-Qaeda is a much more decentralized organization today, but bin Laden, Zawahiri, and the al-Qaeda leadership that remains is in South Asia. It is actively pooling whatever resources it has left at its disposal, and in a very centralized and methodical way, we believe that it is plotting an attack and moving an attack forward, using what capabilities it has left to attack the homeland in the next few months. So that you face threats from multiple sources and multiple directions. I think the challenge with the more decentralized al-Qaeda is that it's probably a more clandestine, smaller threat. It's more difficult to find. And that's probably, as we deal with al-Qaeda, the centralized organization, that's the challenge that we face in the future.
So it both has, just to summarize, it both has some remnants, if you will, some potent remnants of its leadership, maintaining some level of centralized control and planning. And it also has a dispersed set of activities that may be more difficult to attack. Is that what you're saying?
That present a new challenge for all of us as we try to disrupt it.
Would anyone else like to comment on that? Because it goes to the Vice Chairman's question about capabilities today. We've heard a lot about how we have systematically attacked and imprisoned and killed the leaders, and that is all to the good in many respects, but it does pose the question of whether the less centralized al-Qaeda that we're left with is more or less harmful to us. And my worry is that it's more harmful, and I guess if there are other people who would like to comment, I'd be appreciative of your comments.
I agree with the notion that our success against the leadership is a two-edged sword. I mean, al-Qaeda is like a cancer that's metastasized and spread, and it's terrible. And when they have central leadership, they're more effective at controlling operations and certainly doing the spectacular, so you don't want them to do it. But when they do have central leadership, my assumption is it provides law enforcement, intelligence, and the national security people a better opportunity that if you make an inroad, you can know what's going on and have a better shot at preventing it. When they spread out, and to the extent that they're much more loosely connected and may do some freelancing, it just makes everyone's job a lot harder. So it's a positive thing that the leadership has been decimated in many respects, but it shouldn't give us great comfort in the sense that we still have just a different danger that may be more far-flung in some respects.
Thank you. I'd like to follow up on the question posed by Commissioner Thompson, in which members of the panel essentially said, you have to look at this enemy as in two parts. You've got the hardcore, and I think, Dr. K, you basically said, look, they are hardcore, and the only way to go at them is straight at them. And then there's the broader community of support. And there, it is a battle for the hearts and minds. And I want to probe that a little bit. And I have a two-part question. One is, do we think that there is, in the Muslim world, in the Arab world, broader public support for bin Laden personally, for al-Qaeda generally? And two, if the answer to that is yes, how does that hurt us? What is the impact of that broader support? Why should we be worried about it? Could you start with that, Dr. K?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to emphasize that what bin Laden represents only reflects an extremist minority of the Muslim community. So we're not talking about the Muslim world as a whole in general that adheres to and supports his beliefs, his philosophies, his vision.
But let me could I just interrupt for a moment? As I understand it, there is considerable and broad support for him and for al-Qaeda, or approval. Maybe I'm not using the right terminology from your point of view, but could you expand on your answer a little bit?
Well, I think it varies by country. In those countries which have a much more stricter interpretation of Islam, countries like Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, for example, his popularity, his appeal is probably stronger. I mean, we don't have obviously good numbers here which we can judge. We're sort of working on the basis of anecdotal evidence. In those countries which have more moderate interpretations and implementation of Islam in the countries, Morocco, Turkey, for example, the level of support is probably much less. And whether it's growing or not, I think is very difficult to gauge. And yes, I think there is even amongst the more moderate elements, which I alluded to earlier, I think you will find sympathy for what he's trying to do. Maybe not his tactics, but certainly for his vision of unifying, all Muslims into under one caliphate. I think you probably have a great deal of support for that vision. Less support for his tactics, and certainly even less support for his indiscriminate attacks on civilians.
Did you want to answer the part of the question about the impact of that support? Does it have, should we worry if bin Laden and al-Qaeda's support in the Muslim world is growing?
Well, I think definitely we should worry if that support is growing, because it means that we as the United States, as well as our allies, will face greater potential pool of recruits out there, of terrorist recruits. And it means that even if bin Laden and al-Qaeda were to disappear tomorrow, that you still have enough remnants out there in terms of affiliated, like-minded, we use the term like-minded groups or individuals who will carry on the banner because they believe in what he stood for.